Hey, Emily, this is Nick Snee with the City of Madras. There's four of us here in the council chambers. We may not have a quorum, but we're waiting for a couple more people to come. Just want to give you an update.
Small group. Sorry, we're late. Sorry, we're late. If there's more than one email, I get confused about the topic.
Well, I'm sorry. Dr. Baker, why don't you stay here with that microphone's at?
Not newspaper.
Stay here with this microphone's better
Okay.
for you.
No, they were asking me about, KTVZ wanted, somebody from the police department told me to talk to me. They wanted to talk to me about, the popo, and then that kind of led to the shelter and other stuff, and I dropped your name a lot. For now, I said, oh, yeah.
All right, Chair Lapine, we have a quorum.
We do?
Just
All right, if we have a quorum, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order at 2:21. Nick, you want to do the roll call?
Yes, please. Tony Mitchell. Will Ibershoff. Cindy Potter. Dustin Hawkins. Fatma Taha is absent. Sheriff Jason Pollock. Jeff Hurd, absent. Jeremy Green, absent. Michael Baker,
Present, late, but present.
thankful. Mayor Mike Lapine.
Present.
Nicholas Sneed, here. Penny Codemo.
He's on duty.
Steve Webb is absent. Tim Gasner. Absent. Chief Tim Plummer
Present.
and Trent Titus.
Present.
Thank you. Have a quorum.
Thank you, Nick. Just move right into, is there any public comments? Anybody online that wishes to make a public comment?
We only have one member online. That's Emily Hammond from the Fair Housing Council of Oregon.
All right, let's move on to establishing an ordinance for finding grocery stores shopping carts.
Okay, so I did talk with our city attorney Garrett Crosstech about this morning, and so at our January 22nd Homeless Advisory Committee meeting, I will have him join us remotely, and he'll give us kind of an overview of how we could regulate shopping carts that are left clearly off property. Had a discussion with him about state law and those limitations. And, real quickly, the discussion was, are you worried about shopping carts that are just like across the street from the grocery store? Or the ones across town? I said, ones across town. We don't have largely a problem with those across the street. They're several blocks away or more. So we have some options on that. And so what we'd like to do is kind of walk you through that. And Mayor Lapine, I'm hoping that this committee could make a recommendation to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission could then look at it and then make a recommendation to the City Council. It's kind of our trajectory on that. But we do have some options, and the general kind of concept would be $50 a shopping cart.
Is any other community doing this?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes. So there is precedent.
I mean, I kind of feel mixed on this, because like, someone's snags their cart, walks off with their cart, essentially steals their cart, but we're finding the store for someone stealing their cart and then not going back and getting their cart. That's kind of how in one way it feels, but at the same time, those carts aren't cheap. If I was go down the street and I saw my cart there, I'd be like, dude, that's my cart.
Right.
I'd go get my cart.
Yeah, I would,
They're about $500 a cart.
Well, I'd definitely go back and get my cart.
$500 for shopping cart?
Yeah. And it was really interesting because when I saw, I don't remember who was collecting the carts, but I happened to be going over by that lot there by Sonic, and I saw they were pulling the trailer. And they didn't see the person with the cart as they were getting ready to drive away. He's pushing the cart, he goes. Waiting. So yeah, I don't think it's not like they don't want to, hey, you. So I don't know. I really got mixed feelings over it.
Nick, do you know of the local stores, how many of them have the technology that like lock the wheels so you can't go a certain distance past their property line?
I don't know that any of them have that technology. I know that Dollar General has that physical device. It's like a bar that extends up. And so that when you go past the front door, that bar hits the top of the door. And so it doesn't allow that cart to go out. So, I've never noticed that because I don't really
That's
shop at the
difficult
grocery
for-
cart there, but
It's difficult for grocery stores to do that too, when people use the carts to take their groceries to their car if they have a lot of groceries.
And we've got data to support this. Safeway, we have the largest problem with. And so the problem is that was permitted in the late nineties, I believe, is when that was built. The city's standards at that time did not require any sort of outside storage to be enclosed and site obscuring. So we can't, now that we have that standard, we can't go back and say, oh, you need to build this fence. It needs to be site obscuring. That would be one manner of securing the carts. However, when Steve Keever, our former code enforcement officer, approached them on at least 3 occasions and said, hey, you guys really need to start locking up your carts when they're not being used, it fell on deaf ears. So the issue really is that the stores don't, this particular store does not want to secure their carts.
So they're not going grocery shopping and then just walking off the cart. They're going up there and grabbing a cart and.
Absolutely. And I personally witnessed one individual ride his bike up, ditch his bike on the sidewalk behind the building, and then grab a cart and then walk off, and he put his stuff in there. So the access to the carts is creating a problem in itself. And when you ask them to secure them, they're not wanting to do that. So
Things change, so can't you come back to Safeway? Can't you come back to Safeway and let them know that there have been problems now that your carts are everywhere, that
Yes, we
now
have.
you need to start locking them up?
we have on 3 occasions.
So this here will kind of encourage them to lock their.
Well, bar another alternative that this committee or anyone else would want to propose, this is one way of dealing with that.
Okay.
So we'll have the city.
If I can, just to lean on that a little bit more to help you understand the other things that we're doing as well is our former code enforcement officer went around and priced out these carts. Because some of the direction we're giving our PD officers, if they find these people pushing these carts around, they cite them for having stole the carts. Our biggest problem is where do we put them after we do that? Because we're going to take them from them. They don't very well fit in the backseat of the car. So we can do that because I lean in kind of the way the mayor does. It's kind of like, oh, wait a minute, we're going to penalize the retail for them being the victim of theft. And so we're trying to attack it on both fronts. Is it, look here, and it doesn't really matter. You don't have to prove that the guy stole it or the person stole it. It's theft by receiving. Property says Thriftway on the handle. You're not a Thriftway employee. You're, a mile and a half from the Thriftway. It's a theft of lost or mislaid property. Here you go. It's a lesser offense. However, it's still a citable offense. But so there's 2 ways to give them some incentivize the retailer to take some responsibility for their property. And on the other hand, we can also just turn around and show, look, we're also after these people to help you recover your stuff.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, thank you.
Just, yeah, I hadn't even thought about the different scenarios and the lack of effort from this particular Safeway in doing something to address it. So originally I was 100% like, why are we finding grocery stores? But now that I think we've kind of taken this 2-pronged approach, I think that's the way to address it, to where the stores knows their responsibility and the individuals know if you do it, or you're going to get fined. So I think that's a win-win, I think, for our community.
Yeah, Chief, I understand there's now security in the store. That was reported to me. Have you?
At Safeway,
Yes.
they've had their own private security for a while.
Okay.
We've had some success with them, but we've also had some trouble with them. Like they kind of thump on people a little too hard, or they end up getting thumped on too hard. But I also heard rumored, and I haven't confirmed it, that they have a threshold now, and I think that's why our calls for service there have gone down. As if it doesn't value $200 or more, they're not going to even confront them. They're just going to let them walk. But this is not an uncommon practice. I did security training for Best Buy, and they didn't confront anybody. So you could walk out there with hundreds, $200, $300, $400 worth of computer equipment, and they're not even going to confront you.
Well, they didn't always have security there, so perhaps the imposition of the regulations may cause them to start.
And I think
securing
it's
their
by
carts.
taking it in a holistic approach. And the other thing is if you see something, say something. You see somebody walking, I mean, I've done this several times when I'm not working. See somebody walk to the cooler, pick up a 12 or 24 pack and start heading from the front door. I first like, you gonna pay for that before you leave or what? And that usually like, oh, people are watching, people are actually saying things. So there's more like a tribe or group mentality about we're gonna hold each other accountable for that. So that helps as well.
Okay, so to move forward with this, Nick, do you just need,
It was just kind of a heads up for our discussion, at our next meeting, the January 22nd meeting.
okay. Next, report on resources available for the pollution cleanup in Willow Creek. I know we were looking for funding for this, right?
Yes, we are. And so I wanted the
Looking for funding.
funding. So our former code enforcement officer, Steve Keever, had some drone footage taken of Willow Creek. And the amount of littering, pollution, contamination, whatever adjective you want to use, is astounding. And so I did report this to the governor's regional solution team leader for Central Oregon, Zavi Brohop, pardon me. And I asked him if there was resources available for the city of Madras to clean this up. And he said he wasn't aware of any. I then asked him if DEQ had any resources, and he said they did not. In the process of this email discussion, he included Nicole, and I forget her last name, one of Senator Wyden's aides. And I separately talked with her about 2 weeks ago, and she was very concerned with the lack of response from the state on this. And the legal circumstances that I see have mostly caused this is, number one, it was the Boise and Grants Pass court cases that were rendered, and couple that with the legislation that Governor Brown passed, or should say signed into office, that prohibited the city of Madras from relocating individuals camping on public property unless there was another location for them to go. We could not relocate these people out of the creek. And Mayor, I will unfortunately ask you to recall the number of years that we've had to sit and look at what's going on in Willow Creek and say, no, we cannot lawfully require them to relocate because our shelter wasn't open. We didn't have other locations identified.
When did our governor sign where Madras cannot?
It's for every city and county, every municipality, including state agencies like ODOT.
It was near the end of COVID. It was like 20, I think.
So my legal premise or justification for the assistance from the state of Oregon is, listen, there is law that was signed into office by a governor that preempted our ability to address this issue as it came up. Now it's grown and now we have an issue. We need assistance on that. So Mayor and committee members, I'm currently organizing a meeting with staff from Senator Wyden and Merkley's office. And this is one of the agenda items, is how we deal with this. Another agenda item is having a conversation with them about how we get a meeting with Warm Springs tribal leadership to discuss their impacts to our community and how we can work together on that with respect to the homelessness.
When I talked to her, there was a lot of kind of like jibber jabber back and forth until I pulled up the pictures that you got from those drone pictures. And once she saw that, she was like, oh my, I said, yeah, talk to Nick.
So Trenton's seen it before. You don't have the look of shock on your face because you've seen it probably every day, right? Yeah. So we will be organizing this meeting at the staff level and hope to report back to the committee on how that discussion goes and what our options for collaboration are.
Nick, just to clarify, is this a meeting with the city of Madras or is this a meeting with the Homeless Advisory Committee?
Maybe city Madras staff, but I would say certainly the mayor will be there. And I think that strategically, we may want to bring in public health to that meeting, Baker and Mr. Titus, and perhaps some others.
The fire chief, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So When I say staff, it's Center Wyden, Center Merkley aren't going to be here. It's their staff and city staff. We're not gonna have the whole city council there either. So it's really kind of a staff level discussion is what I'm trying to communicate. And so we will definitely organize our unfortunate industry experts on this to help have a informed conversation.
Yeah, Nick, I think we really ought to strategize on who we want to have there because maybe oftentimes of those people at that level, you get one bite. That's all you get. And so you want to be able to give them a big overall picture. And what we've done already as a solution, because that's what they're going to look for is what, you're coming to us, but what else have you done in order to mitigate this? And we can show them the history of, we've cleaned that up several times. But every time we do it, it's kind of like a weight loss program. Once you're off the weight loss program, it doesn't go back to where you were. It usually goes beyond. And
Yeah,
that's
right.
exactly what that looks like right now.
We can't
Those-
just clean it. We need to clean it, move it, and then maintain it.
Right. So I think that's something to strategize. Is who do we want? I think Dr. Baker being there, somebody from Health Authority, somebody from, Jeff Blake's shop, our shop, anybody else. And I hate to do this and say this, but we have to have somebody from DEQ come in there or whoever's responsible for those waterways. All they'd have to do is look at it and say that that's not a healthy place.
I think Nick said something to me a while back that I think might have a strain on this too, is if DEQ ends up having a caving to a mattress on this, there's other communities that are having the same issues, and it's gonna be a big dollar spent for them.
Yep, I agree. I know the city of Medford had it because of the waterway that travels through their town.
Bear Creek.
Yeah. So,
So additionally, last week I had another consultant firm contact me. I'm working with them on some environmental cleanup grants for some of our properties downtown. And while I was on the phone, I said, by the way, do you guys do anything about waterway cleanup and homelessness? And they kind of looked at me funny. And so when I explained this, they had a better understanding of it. So what we'll be doing is we're organizing a meeting with EPA staff, their regional staff, and we will be approaching them for grant funding to test the soils and the water for Willow Creek for where we believe this pollution exists. So that at minimum, there's a factual basis about what level of impact there is. So don't take my word for it. Hopefully we'll get a grant. Hopefully we'll get that study. And then we can move forward accordingly with some information. So.
Thank you, Nick. Status and the update of no camping, no littering signs. I imagine this is along the creek or by the bridges, correct?
That's right. Those signs should be up. I need to check with our contractor who's should be putting those up if they already aren't.
So underneath the bridges, so like, for example, underneath 7th Street or the main, that 5th Street that goes over, there were signs that said no trespassing. And so those had to be corrected to say no camping, no littering.
there's a new one posted down by Sonic, that roundabout down there and saw that the other day.
So we've taken some new guidance and new review from city attorney. They should be up. If not, they'll be up shortly. And so that will allow us to manage camping and littering in that underneath those bridges and waterways more effectively. That's it for that.
Status of request for city appointment to Homeless Leadership Coalition.
Well, I think it's perhaps obvious at this point, but this is our first meeting with Trenton Titus as our new voting member, or community member. So thank you for your interest in being a community member and serving on this committee. And a great fit. If I may say at the staff level, I don't want to speak for the mayor, but I would believe he has similar sentiments. So thank you for your service and commitment.
You've had overwhelming acceptance from both committee and the council.
Thank you for your help moving forward.
Status of appointment of the community partner member at city council.
This might be a typo here. There's duplicate there, so we
Okay.
can.
I was wondering if the one before wasn't though, was the Homeless Leadership Coalition the regional team?
You know what, Mayor? I think you're correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're correct. Thank you for that. So before you and in the packet was this draft letter. It was drafted, but in a matter of time, the mayor and I decided it was appropriate to just send the letter and not have this committee formally appointed. But I did want you to see the letter that was sent to them. And okay, so we sent a letter. I think what matters is what is the response? And I was hoping for Tony Mitchell to be here, but our partners at Public Health, have you heard of any response, any pre-positioning, pre-planning for this event?
I thought there was an email that came through that basically said, thanks for the letter, but no, we are prioritizing local response. And they mentioned Trent is on the training to do something and things like that. So I, for one, was extremely disappointed in our request for support from the Homeless Leadership Council. I stress, the letter here stressed that we have a lot of people that are really excited to help with this, but we are not experts in point in time count. And that's what we were relying on. We didn't want the Homeless Leadership Council to come in and do this on our behalf. We just wanted to make sure that we were adequately supported in doing it. And the response from them, and then a kind of a follow-up from Scott Acock with Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council just seemed to fall flat. And I was hoping that Tony would be here today because that he's on the commission, but the point in time count is coming up. I think it's January 23rd. So it's coming up, and I haven't heard anything locally about what's going on, other than a couple of trainings. Trent has been on every meeting they've had, and there's still very little communication. And as our letter shows, funding is dependent on these numbers. If we don't accurately capture the numbers, we lose money that we can't just take from another pot. And that's the concern. So I don't know if there's a way to push back and say, maybe you didn't understand our letter. Maybe what can we do to get a little bit additional support locally?
So is that a conversation maybe with Tammy Bainey, the executive director of CYC? I know that it's indirectly related to the Homeless Leadership Coalition, but I think she would understand the need to have good data so we can articulate the need and capture the resources needed to address this challenge in our community.
Not that I want to go to the homeless, go above them and say, well, go to your boss because you didn't do what I wanted kind of thing. But I think we're at that point. I think last year's numbers, what did it be? The letter said 51 was our official point in time count, and we know that's not accurate.
And the previous year was 85.
And so let's talk to Tammy Bainey, what's her official title, executive director of CLIC, and see what they can do to help support this, to see if they can do some extra pushback as well.
Brent, are you part of the Home Leadership Coalition? Or have they asked you to do trainings on the point?
They haven't asked me to. I got an email from. They haven't asked me to do any trainings.
Oh,
But when Liza Wilson reached out to me, sounded like she was welcoming any kind of involvement. In fact, she's told me shop for some training, for unsheltered training, if I wanted to better understand the counts methodology. I asked her what was entailed in that, and she didn't answer my question on that very well.
I think this year they're using a phone app or something, and the training they're offering is basically how to use the app. It doesn't seem, the
I wanna
big- the
know-
big picture's missing.
Right.
this.
I asked what would it entail, because I want to know basically what do I expect from this training, and what she responded was how to get into it. Because how do I know if I want the training if I don't know what the material, the meat and potatoes of the training is?
Okay, so if it's okay with you, Mayor, what I'll do is I will email Tammy Bainey today or this evening. I'll CC you on that email with Dr. Baker and request either a phone call or somehow a discussion of how we can better prepare for that locally here with some regional assistance.
Okay.
Especially because how often are you going down there?
Pretty much daily.
So you would be one of the people that could give a more accurate account of how many people are staying down there?
But we're looking at not just what, if we're talking about numbers of homeless, it's not just the people you see down
No, it's
there.
not. It's couch surfing.
Right.
It's cars. It's
And,
trailers.
sorry, and that's my concern with the weather change coming up, the expected change. We know there's not going to be visible homelessness. We're not going to go down and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everyone's kind of going to disperse, find a warm place to kind of bed down. Hopefully our shelters, our centers up and running full capacity. But we know from past experience, there's couch surfing, there's friends of friends of friends, there's all this going on. That's when it's going to be harder to get an accurate count.
Right.
So kind of with that in mind, I spoke with the Office of Resiliency today, which is kind of Department of Health and Human Services, asking for additional support right now with this change in weather. And their response was, there's actually no funding to help right now. But if there is something that the city of Madras and our service center is looking at, maybe some blankets, maybe some cots, maybe some mattresses, those kind of resources they already have. I don't want to say stockpiled, but kind of already in, we can request those right now with this cold snap coming up. But if that is not where we're looking at needing to go, and we need to focus maybe on the center being open, then that'll be a different request as well. So, so maybe a touch base with Tony Mitchell and the Faith-Based Network to see where we're at now with both the opening and the point in time count. So we know what kind of resources that we need to request to support that.
We good, Nick? Can we move on? Yes. Okay, the status of appointment of, we already said that one. The next Homeless Awareness Committee meeting date and time is January 22nd. Is that good for everybody?
That is correct. 22nd at 2 p.m. We will have, the city is organizing called a ribbon cutting for the shelter. And so I think the question for this committee is, do you want your own separate tour of the shelter? Would you rather do that at the ribbon cutting? What does that look like? Tony wasn't presumably able to come today. He told me last week it would likely be hectic for him. So presumably that's why he's not here. So, I want to be responsive to that. But I think it is good for us to go through that facility. Full disclosure, I've never been there. I've never been in it during any port of construction. And as I was talking with someone locally here, there's concern about the shelter maybe not being adequately sized or have enough space for the provision of services. So I think it would be good for us to go through it to understand that. And I would also say maybe on maybe some sort of annual basis to do that, or maybe more frequently, because there may be opportunities for funding to maybe change that moving forward. So I think it's important for this committee, from my perspective as staff, to monitor how that facility is working. And of course, going back to the point in time count, making sure we're getting the services in our community that meet the need. And so if that's a facility change or expansion, then we would want to know and advocate accordingly. If it's hey, we just need this particular service provider to come into our community and provide service because it's not being provided here, well, that's also part of a discussion as well. So I know it's opening. I know everyone wants to get in and see it, but at the same time, I think the priority from my perspective is let's get it open, let's get it in service, and then we as a committee can see it. But if you would like your own tour, just let me know. Or if we can tag along to the open house or ribbon cutting, we could do that as well. So
Nick, just clarification, when is the deadline for opening? That's January 10th, correct?
correct.
when is the actual ribbon cutting ceremony then for the,
I think Tony said it would be in February.
okay. And then is it possible then, will they be open on the tenth? Is that still the,
Oh, I was told they would be open before the tenth.
okay. So is it possible then maybe next week to kind of just, I don't want to say drop in, but as a community member, resident, stakeholder, just go over and look at it then?
Yeah, I mean, we could just organize an informal tour. It doesn't have to be a meeting of the committee.
The city council has been invited tomorrow at 4:30. Would there be any reason why this committee couldn't join them?
I don't see any reason for that, but the mayor also gets to decide a lot of that as well. So if that's something you would like to do, I'm
I
sure
have
that-
no issues with that. In fact, I just got a text from Counselor Townsend said, does it make us seem like we're above everybody else? If we get to see it before they open, it would be better if we saw it while it was in operation, since they're gonna be in operation on the tenth anyway. And the council has to be back here we're supposed to be there at 4:30 for show and tell. We gotta be back here by 5:30. I don't see any reason why we couldn't be there and be joined by the homeless committee, and the homeless committee can even stay afterwards after we leave to see what, what more there's to
Okay.
see. But, we were there,
I wasn't, but Mark back.
oh, Mark, that's right. We went there. It's, you could see you were there, Mike. I mean, you can see everything within 10 by 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's not that big of a building. I
No,
mean,
so,
Mark had mentioned there really wasn't next or office space and stuff for a case manager.
right, and that was a concern Dr. Baker brought up.
Store, and that was a shock, I mean,
Right, well, that was, I think though, when this was first, I think we talked a lot about resources we could use this for after the discussion of it being created was you know what I'm trying to say? But I think with the property that's up there and what Nick was alluding to before is if we can see what, get this open so we can get it to
Right.
do what's supposed to do. And then we can see what those next efforts, we could actually look at this as phase one. And then
Yeah.
phase two would mean, okay, we need another building added we can add these services
Sure.
there then too, and just keep pumping our state and federal grant sources to help make that work. And if they see that we're actually being productive with this and the good it's doing,
Yeah.
they'll be more amped to support that, especially we keep pushing the homeless leadership committee and other state people keep being that squeaky wheel. Hopefully we'll get.
yeah.
I might be able to make it tomorrow. I'm gonna try, but if I can't do the official, do I just reach out to?
Yeah, contact me and I'll always
Can we
organize.
just send an email out to the committee and saying,
Yeah.
hey, please join the city council at this.
if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Or they-
And if people get tied up, email me and I will organize a one-on-one tour, right? So,
So are we supposed to actually tell our homeless people that they can go up there Wednesday? And is it gonna actually be open?
I will find that out and I will put it in the email as well. But I don't see any reason why not.
Sorry, they'll be shutting down the Cornerstone Baptist Church shelter Tuesday night and then opening.
I do not have that
I'll
level of
find that out for
detail,
us and
but
put that in the email. Thank you, Nick.
I need- so please understand, so I've got some meetings late this afternoon and evening. So the email may be sent to you after 9 o'clock at night tonight. So check your email first thing in the morning.
Nick, I have one clarifying, and I'm sorry, this is all coming back now. Clarifying, the resource center is owned by the city of Madras. And then the city of Madras has selected the faith-based network as the provider to provide whatever services the faith-based network deems appropriate for that building? Or has the city specifically said you shall do X, Y, and Z when you're in this building?
I don't know. The city of Madras owns the property in the building. We are working on an agreement, an operations agreement with the faith-based network to operate the shelter. The funding was awarded for the city of Madras to provide not only shelter, but other services there. And I don't know exactly what those other services were identified as in the grant application. I can find out if you'd like. I think that it's my understanding that there is openness by the faith-based network to provide services there or provide the space for services to be provided there by other state, regional, nonprofit, whatever, whoever provides that service. So it's not dedicated to, I'm gonna make this up, ABC Counseling Company, that's their office. No, it's ABC Company can use it from 1 to 2 o'clock, and then Trenton Titus Services is gonna come in at 2 to 3, and then he's gonna provide a different service. You know, so it's a shared space. It's designed to be used by a lot of different service providers. That was the intention. And Baker, if I may expand on that just for a second, I think it's important for this committee to understand that when the vision was started for this shelter, we have to remember that in our minds or certain people's minds, their frame of reference or what could a shelter be was based on what a shelter was being provided in our community at that time. So think back to 2019, 20, and that was a seasonal shelter, correct? And I'm not defending, I'm just explaining, I think what I believe is to be a rational thought, which is when asked about what a shelter needs to include and what that looks like, it looks to be a permanent facility that can better serve that seasonality of the shelter. So that's what you have today. If we were to start designing the shelter today, after 3.5 years, we would probably design it a little bit differently, right? And so I want to just acknowledge the fact that, you know, the past always informs the future. And sometimes when you look to the future, you don't know what you don't know, and you make some challenges. So that's why I think I said earlier, you know, if we need to have a tour or some sort of report by the operator on an annual or a couple times a year, so we understand how that shelter is operating or perhaps not meeting the needs of our community, then we can turn into the advocacy role and communicate with our regional and state partners, perhaps even federal, about what changes need to be made there. Maybe it is a facility change. Maybe it's just a service provision. Wouldn't that be nice? All we just need to bring in a different provider. I wish it was that simple, but my guess is eventually we're going to need some facility changes. And you're seeing that in the Ben shelters right now. Okay. Dr. Baker, as you recall some of the shelters in Bend, the city of Bend's putting in some of their money to make some changes to the shelter, one of the shelters down there that they have participation in. So these things kind of grow as the need grows or the needs change. So that's why I'm trying to be intentional on having awareness and getting report and being active monitors of the shelter to make sure we're meeting the needs of our community.
Anybody have anything else? Well, thank you. I'm getting to feel you guys are the core people in this group.
So the only thing I have is, Hector Baker and Trent weren't here when Nick brought up the fact that the food bank closed. You guys are aware of that. And that maybe get neighbor impact and some other resources together to maybe build a warehouse here for neighbor impact.
My understanding, there are some things in the works already about a larger service area, a larger footprint. There are, I don't know if I'm at liberty to discuss, and I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn, but I know an entity has approached the county about a location, and the county is offering support to help that happen. So hopefully within a few weeks, there will be a press release about that. And so the need is obviously there. And I think this entity has access to some grant funding that will make this happen right away once whatever legal things in the background have to happen first. So yes.
Well, and because we all know that, the United Methodist Church has been asking for help, that they need to move, get out of there because there is no space. And now that the food pantry closed, you know, everybody's expecting them to pick it up, which they did. Now they're doing Tuesday, Wednesdays and Thursdays from 10 to 2 to help out. But I know they've run out of space, so that would be wonderful if something else could come up. Yeah. Good, good. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody, for your commitment to this committee and the work you're doing. Nothing else? We'll go ahead and adjourn at 3:02.